It's not light, it's another small chance. Otherwise, people
No.
you're not actually on camera, so
Say what you like.
Thank you, everybody. Please start settling down. We'll get going. Good evening, members, and a warm welcome to the public. Nice to see you here. Just a little bit of housekeeping. The fire exits are positioned there and there in the corners. If there is a fire alarm tonight, there's no practice drill advised, so please leave the building via those exits and make your way to the bandstand. Please, hang on a minute, I've got a reminder for myself there. Mobile phones, please make sure that they're on silent. And for members, please make sure that you turn your microphones off after you finish speaking. Speakers will be held to time. It's 2 minutes for each of you tonight, if you are speaking. And for the remainder of the public, please remain silent throughout. And if the officers would introduce themselves, please.
Good evening, Giles Holbrook, Senior Planning Officer. Thank you.
Good evening, my name's Adrian Smith and I'll be presenting the second item on the agenda tonight.
Good evening, Jason Hawkes, Principal Planning Officer.
And Emma Parks, the Head of Development and Building Control.
Good evening, Claire Bryan, Principal Planning Solicitor.
Hello, it's Laurel Tilbury, Committees Officer.
Thank you very much. Could we have apologies, please?
Thank you. We've had apologies from Councillor Martin Boffey, Len Ellis-Brown, Nigel Emery, Nick Grant, Jay Mercer, Sam Raby and Jonathan Taylor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hopefully everybody's had an opportunity to read through the minutes of the previous meeting. If anybody has anything to raise on those. If not, we've all agreed. Thank you. Declaration of members' interest, please. Mr. Minto.
Thank you, Chair. For item 6, I have an interest. I know the applicant, so I will withdraw from the debate and the vote.
Thank you very much, Councillor Minto.
Yes, item 7, the YMCA Football Club. The Horsham Society have been lobbying quite hard on that item. I'm a member of the Horsham Society, but I'm not a member of any of their committees or a decision maker in any way, so I don't see any reason for not taking part in that item.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, thanks.
Sorry, Chairman, I'm a member of the Horsham Society, but I suspect half the people in the room are members of the Horsham Society, so I'll declare it, but I'm not sure it's any relevance. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, me too. I wasn't planning to declare
Thank
it, but
you.
I am.
Thank you. We'll take that as a job lot.
No,
I will declare it as well.
qualms about mentioning it.
We'll take that as a job lot. Thanks very much. The appeals are listed for notation, unless anybody wants to say anything. Okay, thank you very much. We'll get going. DC 2180 Woodford's Shipley Southwater.
Okay. Good evening. So before I start, Council should note that since the report was published, an additional 3 objections have been received from local residents. These objections do not raise any new material considerations. An additional objection has also been received from Southwater Parish to the current water neutrality proposal. The objection raises concerns regarding the number of properties required by Saxon Weald to offset the proposal at Woodford's. The proposal assumes that all the properties would be 3-bedroom, which is unlikely. Should be noted this concern is addressed in the report in paragraph 6.9. The calculations in the water neutrality report are based on each Saxon Weald home being a 3-bedroom, which is not always the case. To cover this eventuality, Saxon Weald have stated that they will release the required number of homes for the fitting of the flow regulators to ensure the development is water neutral. To remind the council of the site is located to the south of Southwater, to the east of Shipley Road, and includes a dwelling and ancillary buildings set within fields. Here we see the indicative master plan. The proposal is for outline permission with all matters reserved except access for 73 units. This shows the potential layout for proposed units with the existing house retained. This proposal was considered at the August Planning Committee, where there was a resolution to approve planning permission subject to completion of a legal agreement. This was based on a water neutrality proposal which included offsetting measures to install water efficiency measures to properties within Crawley. Following committee, the legal agreement has not been completed and the applicant is now proposing an alternative water neutrality scheme. The amended scheme is proposed to offset the water demand from the proposal through efficiency measures to properties and offsetting measures to approximately 208 Saxon Weald properties within the water resource zone. This utilises the Synergist device, which is the installation of water flow regulators. This is based on the local authority-led offsetting strategy set out in the Sussex North Water Neutrality Report, Part C. This device is a pressure-independent flow controller that can be set at a particular flow rate to reduce house water consumption. There has already been a trial run by Crawley Borough Council, which found that on average the device resulted in a saving of 30 litres of water per day per person. To allow a precautionary buffer, the report recommends adjusted water savings of 27 litres per day. This approach is supported by Natural England. If approved, these offsetting measures would be secured through a legal agreement. As shown in the calculatings, with the offsetting water mitigation measures, the proposal can achieve water neutrality and is once again recommended for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have 2 speakers from the public on this evening. Lisa Lowe, please.
Thank you. Prior to reaching a decision today, I would like to urge councillors on behalf of local residents to consider the following key concerns. It is widely recognised that we will run out of water in this region if we do not take action now to mitigate. Therefore, it is critical that HDC take their responsibilities regarding water neutrality seriously. At the previous committee meeting, it was suggested that Natural England had approved the proposals, yet in reality this is not the case. Instead, they state very clearly that it is the legal responsibility of the competent authority, in this case HDC, to ensure the water neutrality proposals are sufficiently robust and enforceable in perpetuity. Natural England stipulate these conditions, and it is HDC's legal responsibility to ensure they are met. At the last committee, it was openly admitted that HDC had no intention to monitor water usage levels or the offset savings, thus rendering any legal agreement meaningless. When it was questioned how HDC could be held responsible for enforcing a scheme if it did not measure it, councillors were informed that they only had to decide whether water neutrality was enforceable in principle, and that an enforcement policy to put this into practice was effectively not required. This raises the genuine and fundamental question for us all, which is what is the purpose then of water neutrality if there is no intention of holding anyone to account for its actual delivery? As such, this is a clear breach of the Habitats Regulation, which has been deemed unlawful and would therefore be subject to legal challenge. Furthermore, it remains contrary to the Part C water neutrality strategy that HDC have adopted, stating the necessity to monitor the difference between actual and designed water demand, adding that should actual water use be higher, further offsetting may be required. If the LPA remain of the view that measuring any actual water usage is not necessary despite this, then as councillors, it is your responsibility and role to challenge this fundamental breach of responsibility, and a motion for deferral should be carried until this can be demonstrated. Finally, the level of flexibility granted to the developer in terms of the percentage of affordable housing is of genuine concern, with the risk that this site could be flipped to a housing association, resulting in an isolated pocket of 100% social housing in a semi-rural position outside the built-up boundary of our village. Whilst as local residents we fully recognise the need for affordable housing to be delivered as part of the mix, the location and geography of the site, together with its distance from local amenities and lack of access, raises fundamental questions and concerns regarding its suitability under this scenario.
Thank you, Lisa. That's 2 minutes.
Just
now.
wrapping up, can I?
Very briefly.
Whilst a district-wide and strategic approach to affordable housing is required, this application should not be used as a quick fix solution to meeting the district's social housing quota, and therefore requests as a condition of approval that a mix of housing is stipulated. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Andrew Munton, please.
Chair, councillors, thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak this evening. I'm Andrew Munton, Planning Director of Reside Developments, a local award-winning independent high-quality developer. Reside has continued to work tirelessly with your officers to create a high-quality development that will blend with Southwater and create an attractive entrance to the village. Following the previous committee in August, where this committee granted resolution to permit this application, ongoing work on that water neutrality scheme highlighted that the work was going to take longer to undertake than we would like, as we are keen to see the houses built as soon as possible. I would note that we continue to work on that scheme and hope that it will be used on other homes in the future. As such, we decided to move to another water neutrality scheme we are already working on for another of our applications in order to be able to deliver this site sooner. This scheme is working with Saxon Weald to install the Synergist flow regulators to some of their existing housing stock. Nothing else has changed in respect to this application that you previously supported. This scheme remains water neutral, but is simpler to deliver in the short term and simpler to manage from the council's perspective also, as the scheme is now wholly within Horsham. It is vital that we work collaboratively together to deliver the new homes that are so much needed in this district. I therefore ask that you endorse your officer's recommendation and approve this planning application. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Reply from the officers, please.
So I'll come back on the affordable housing issue or concern. So this was considered at the last committee in August and was considered acceptable. The applicants are proposing to go up to 100% affordable housing. So that is given considerable weight and determination of the application, given the district-wide's desperate need for affordable housing. It's not considered to be any amenity impacts on residents or neighbours. It would still deliver a mix of housing which would be acceptable in accordance with the MPPF and would also deliver much needed affordable housing. So it's considered acceptable. Yeah.
Good evening, members. I'll respond to some of the points raised around the water neutrality aspects here. The Speaker's correct that Natural England do not approve water neutrality schemes. The responsibility ultimately does lie with the local authority in its decisions to make sure that it is compliant with the habitats regulations, and that is set out in the recommendation to you and how we have assessed this application in its totality. The Speaker raises a few points here. The first in relation to enforcement, and as I said back at the August committee meeting, the test at paragraph 56 of the MPPF is that a condition obligation needs to be enforceable. The manner in which it is enforced and how it is enforced is down to the local authority. However, the condition must lay out the means and evidence to be able to enforce. Now, in this case, it is flow regulators that are being installed, and they tend to be installed in the vast majority of cases next to the water meter in a property. Therefore, it can be physically seen whether that flow regulator remains in situ and whether it is active or not. In any illegal agreement, there would be obligations on the landowner that run with the land, so affecting future occupants as well, to retain, maintain and operate those flow regulators in perpetuity or until water neutrality is no longer a requirement. So officers' view is that this means is enforceable. The council does have the means to do so. It has the resources to do spot checks as it so pleases as part of its enforcement programme. Now, reference was made to the Part C report. However, that looks at a broader strategy for achieving water neutrality and also looking at monitoring the totality of water savings over time And it is in that situation, if the totality of savings does not achieve what Part C anticipates, that is when further mitigation may be required. It is not on a house-by-house, site-by-site basis. So in summary, officers maintain the recommendation that water neutrality has been demonstrated here, that the conditions and obligations that are set out in the report are enforceable, and that water neutrality will be achieved for the lifetime of this development. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right, members, local members, Colette and Alex. Yes, Colin, thank you. Not sure if either of you would like to comment. Councillor Black.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you to our speakers tonight. Woodford has been in the works for quite a while now. I remember watching this online on a live stream back in April, before many of us were even elected. And then it came before committee, I believe, again in August, when I actually wasn't here. In the meantime, many questions and queries by the community there surrounding water neutrality and other issues have been ticked off and marked as resolved, one after the other. What I would suggest is that all those queries and all those water neutrality concerns are actually just symptomatic of a truth that's at the root of it all, which is that the community has not been engaged in any way by the developer, and has had 73 homes foisted in that particular area without it being part of a strategic plan, or without any communication regarding any benefits to the local community. In fact, when I met with some residents, one of them apologised to me for coming across as a NIMBY, which is a word I absolutely despise. Communities and the people who live within communities have every right to have an opinion and to have an objection if they so feel, when their immediate environment is adjusted in some way. That's all I'd like to say for the moment.
Thank you, Councillor Blackburn. Councillor Jeffrey, would you like to say something?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to echo Councillor Blackburn's comments in regards to obviously residents' concerns and the lack of consultation with the residents that's taken place with this development. Obviously, this development's been on the table before the new council had been elected back in May, and it puts the council, I realise, in a difficult position in that regard. For me, it's a very difficult one because it goes against everything that I stood on during the election, and it's something that's going to be very difficult for me to support in that regard. I'd also highlight the fact that this development is a prime example of why it is so important to keep local plans up to date, to avoid the confrontation and the lack of consultation with the residents, which I think is key to making any development work. We all know that development in the district is going to have to go ahead, but it's the manner in which it's done. And I think obviously this being a prime example of how not to do it. And I share residents' frustrations and concerns, and I myself am very frustrated with this. And it's for me, it's in the wrong place, and primarily outside of the built-up area boundary. And on that reason, it's very difficult for me to support it, based on those factors. I haven't really got much else I can say in that regard. I think I summed up my feelings in August as well, and I don't think my position has changed very much from there either. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. Now, just a quick one. This was approved back in August. It's back with us because of water neutrality. So let's please try and stay on mission there. This is a water neutrality conversation. Would anyone who'd like to? Councillor Wood.
Thank you. Just on the note of the enforcement and how we look at it at like district-wide going forward, when we have a development of 10, 20, 50, 70 houses, 73 houses, 73 homes, I wonder at what point we start looking at the average for the water neutrality of that as a whole, of that development as a whole, because if a developer builds 73 houses but it's not enforced and it's not regulated enough, that actual development might be itself not adhering to what we require. So once the new owners have come in, the landowners come in, and they're the new owners in the home, they'll be the ones that are supposed to look after it. But I wonder whether we should look at those developments as a whole when it comes to water neutrality with a larger scale, for example, 73 homes that would have the same regulator and the same approved water neutrality strategy. And I'm wondering whether that water neutrality strategy has, evolved enough.
To respond to that point, there's two aspects here. There's first the on-site mitigation, which is efficient fixtures and fittings that are called with the Part G industry standard water calculator. Any sort of monitoring of that post-development wouldn't really achieve anything because there'd be no baseline to work off. Ultimately, the Part G calculator is based on averages produced by the building regulations and through research through that establishment. So it is a reliable way of calculating water consumption and endorsed by Natural England, peer inspectors, etc. With the flow regulator, again, through the study that was carried out and trialled by Crawley Homes back in 2022, now a year and a half ago, that came up with a very robust set of data that showed an average of around 30 litres per person per day, as my colleague has said. And we are taking 27 litres to be precautionary, which is accepted by Natural England, again, based on the evidence from the Crawley Home study. So our view is this tool, this flow regulator, is a reliable piece of kit to install into homes. Now, in terms of monitoring how effective that is challenging for the simple reason that where's your baseline data, and that baseline data moves over time. Because number of occupants in the property may change, a family may grow, a new family may move in, equally behaviours may change. What we must effectively work on is the best scientific evidence that we have in front of us, which is the trial data for the flow regulator that does show savings of up to 30 litres per person per day.
That's true. But with the whole unit of 73 houses, you could take the averages across it. And if it then exceeds, you would know that that unit of 73 houses did exceed.
Ultimately, it's open to the council to consider how it monitors these applications going forward, and certainly that's a discussion that we need to have. Ultimately, for the purpose of this planning application, the test is it enforceable? And the point is, yes, it is. And obviously, if we've got evidence that demonstrates it's not complying with the conditions or legal obligations in the legal agreement, then we can enforce against that. So we have a mechanism to do that. How we choose to monitor that is up to the council, and that's about what policy or strategy we have for enforcement generally across the district. Obviously, at the moment, we have our local enforcement plan, and going forward, we are looking to update that. So it's open to the council to consider its approach to monitoring going forward. Thank you.
Sorry, Chair. The last thing I would say or ask is, do we have a number of how many of these flow restrictors we can actually install across our district? Is there an upper limit? Do we have a number of Saxon wheel properties that can be attached to? Is it so we can know when thinking about housing in general?
In essence, these can be installed into any property but there are conditions that it is pre-2010 properties, because those constructed after 2010 were constructed with the building regulations introducing optional standards for water performance. So that is a condition of the Natural England advice, which is these only go into that pre-existing stock. Now, Saxon Weald, who have this quantum of stock between 280 to 250 homes, that's a small fraction of their circa 6,000 homes that they have within the district, of which the vast majority will be pre-2010 stock.
Thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Skip.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just two things, really. One, I'm a little bit concerned that we haven't actually got a monitoring process or a reporting process
in place already, and you've alluded to that in your reply. But isn't that a priority? We're going to get more of these cases where we need meters involved, and should we not be making that a priority? A, to find out who's going to inspect those meters and record them, as you would get with water or gas. And secondly, who's going to be responsible for actually doing something about this should there be more usage than we consider appropriate. So I'm really just flagging up that I think this is an important issue, and just saying, yeah, well, it's going to be done, and we're going to take responsibility as the council and all the rest of it. Don't we need to be very specific about how it's done, who's responsible, who's reporting, and more to the point, what happens when we find out that people are using more water than they should be, if that's the case. So I'm just flagging that one up. The other one I would like to flag up is just that this is for outline permission, and we did give outline permission as far as I understand, as been said. But of course there are reserved matters. Can I just make a plea that actually reserved matters are looked at by the planning committee? I remember many years ago in a certain large development to the west of Horsham, we had a major problem with what was going on in that area when the houses were being built, and we couldn't do anything about it, or didn't do anything about it. I think those are reserved matters, and I really would like to make a plea that we actually see those reserved matters at planning, rather than just say, yeah, we give an outline, so that's the end of it.
Thank you, Councillor Skip.
Just a comment. We do have a local enforcement plan at the moment. So obviously any enforcement that we carry out at the moment is in accordance with our local enforcement plan. So it's not like we don't have any process in place, and a local enforcement plan is approved at full council. As I said, we are looking to update that, but we have a plan in place which is effective, and we can enforce against developments if we have evidence and we choose to. In terms of going forward reserved matters, ultimately it's up to members if it's called to committee by a member, or if it meets the criteria for it to be heard at committee in other respects, in terms of number of objections or letters of support, etc., it will come to committee. So, but certainly at the time we get a reserved matters, we can ensure members are aware it's with us, and therefore you have the opportunity to call it to committee if you wish. Thank you.
Can I just pick up on something Councillor Skip mentioned there, which is what happens if people use more water than is the case. Just want to be absolutely clear, none of these water neutrality solutions that we're putting in front of you limit how much water any individual should be using in their property. If someone wants to be profligate with their water and turn a tap on for 5 minutes while they brush their teeth, they're still going to do that. However, the quantum of water that will run through that tap will be less with this mitigation in place than it would otherwise be, therefore creating that water saving. Thank you.
Councillor Mill.
Thank you, Chairman. I think Councillor Jeffrey was very correct earlier. The fundamental problem is we lack an up-to-date local plan and a 5-year land supply. So many of our policies, in particular building outside the built-up area boundary, don't apply, or a tilted balance judged against it. We hope to begin the process of fixing that next week, but that's next week, and it hasn't happened yet, so it carries no weight. A lot's been said about water neutrality in many ways, from the 85 litres a day to enforcement to offsetting. All of these issues have been raised many times. Fundamentally, the process used here, or the offset scheme here, is the same as we are planning to use in our own local plan, and is the same as Crawley are using in their local plan, which is at an examination right now, and indeed will be the same as Chichester's local plan, because the three authorities have worked together. So it's a unified scheme that was developed over a year ago, and it would be bizarre for us to vary from it. Well, more than bizarre, it's basically, it's unsustainable in front of an inspector or at appeals. So we have to follow the path that was set some time ago. If it turns out to be not deliver these savings it was supposed to, then that will be adjusted in the future. But if we to go against this now would collapse our own local plan as well as our neighbours. So fundamentally, we have to look at what has changed this time from the last time we heard this. The only difference is that it's Saxon Weald instead of Ravenholmes in Crawley. That actually makes it easier, not harder, because it's within the same boundaries. So there is no planning reason to go against what we said a few months ago. So whether we like it or not, and I totally appreciate its unpopularity, we have no planning grounds to refuse. So that's the way I feel. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Milne. Would anybody? Councillor Bevis.
Thank you, Chairman. There is one other slight difference from the last time we saw this, and that the applicants have withdrawn their use of rainwater harvesting. Now, that was going to save about 35 litres per person per day, which means that the offset scheme has got to make up that difference, which, okay, it works for this plan, it works for the developers perfectly fine, but it does mean that that amount of offset is not available for future developers. So in a way, these developers are pulling up the drawbridge after them, which I think is a little bit unfortunate, bearing in mind how little water there is available to be used in offsets and other ways in order to achieve water neutrality. But I recognise that that in no way affects the planning considerations for this scheme. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Bevis. Would anybody else like to say anything? In that case, let's put it to a vote. Do we have a nominator, please? Nominate. Proposer, sorry. Proposed, Councillor Bevis, seconder. Councillor Frankland. Okay. So all those in support, please raise your hands.
That's 14 in support.
Thank you. Those against?
That's 3 in objection.
And abstentions, please.
That's 2.
Thank you very much. Does that equal what we are here?
17,
okay.
I've got 19. I've got 20 people, I've got 19 votes. Who's not voting?
Minto.
Oh, yeah, that's the missing. Yeah, because he'd withdrawn. That's fine. That's up. Okay, so I carried.
14-3-2. Motion carried.
Yeah.
Thank you. Motion carried. Okay. Just get my things together here. Okay, thanks, guys. DC 22-2257, YMCA Football Club, Goringsmead, Horsham.
Good evening. This application was previously heard at the October committee meeting and seeks planning permission for a 3G artificial grass pitch at the YMCA Football Club on Goringsmead in Horsham. The decision was deferred to provide time for the applicant to provide further information on the viability of the club with and without the 3G pitch, and to consider alternative means of constructing the pitch so that it would be less invasive with a veteran ash tree located on the western site boundary. It was also requested that conditions be drafted for consideration in the event permission is granted. This is the site as existing, which includes the existing clubhouse, car park, and a grass football pitch. This is an aerial photograph of the site. And these are photographs of the existing grass pitch and surrounds, with some further photographs here. To recap, the application also proposes 6 15-metre high floodlighting columns to replace the existing 6 floodlights. It also proposes 6-metre high bull-stop mesh fencing to the eastern and western ends of the pitch, with a further 6-metre high bull-stop fence proposed to protect properties on Gorings Mead on the left-hand side of the screen. In addition, the proposals include a sports stall and a storage area. A key material consideration is the impact of the new 3G pitch on a veteran ash tree shown here. Owing to the proximity of the pitch to the tree, there is significant risk that the foundations to the pitch will sever roots, resulting in its deterioration and loss. The Council's tree officer has raised objections accordingly. Members are advised that paragraph 180C of the MPPF states that proposals which result in the loss or deterioration of veteran trees should only be granted for wholly exceptional reasons. Previous evidence has demonstrated that the 3G pitch cannot be accommodated in any other manner on the site to avoid impacting on this tree. Since the October committee meeting, the applicants have proposed an alternative means of forming the foundations to the pitch as shown here. The Council's tree officers retain their concerns that any impact on the veteran tree cannot be ruled out. The tree officers' comments are referenced to paragraph 6.20 to 6.22 of the committee report. There are no alternative means of constructing the foundations that would have a lesser impact on the tree. To address the matter of viability, the applicants have submitted details of their income and expenditure over the last 5 years, along with projections for the next 5 years, both with and without the new 3G pitch. This table is at paragraph 6.2 of the report and shows the losses over the last 5 years. Further tables at paragraph 6.5 and 6.7 show the forecast with and without the 3G pitch. Officer discussion of the submitted data is set out at paragraph 6.2 to 6.15 of the committee report. In broad summary, the evidence shows an average £34,000 a year loss over each of the last 5 years, and that the installation of the 3G pitch will turn these losses into an approximate £10,000 a year profit. Officers are of the view that these margins do not in this case satisfy the high bar test set out at paragraph 180 of the MPPF of a wholly exceptional reason to justify the deterioration and loss of the veteran tree. A list of recommended conditions is included at Appendix 2 of the committee report as requested. Whilst recognising the YMCA's financial evidence, given the high bar requirements of paragraph 180 of the MPPF, officers recommend that the application be refused for the reason as set out in the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with the public, please. Rory Walsh.
The applicants claim that as a charity, they are expected to operate on a sound basis. However, from their published accounts, this does not seem that they meet this criterion. At a time when England is at its most difficult place to find a home in the developed world, their void rate is not the national average of 1% or the generous target of 3%. For the last 2 years, it's been an unbelievable figure of 9%. This is acknowledged in their accounts as having a material impact of £500,000 for 2022 and for 2021. That's £1 million wasted in 2 years, enough money to fund the club for over 50 years. In 2019, they went into the student accommodation business, investing £108,000 in Guildford White Centre, only to sell it off in 2022 when they failed to maintain viable occupancies. In 2021, they abandoned the 30-unit modular built development in Brighton with a loss of £304,000. It can be seen that the YMCA Downslink Group, who put faith above ability, is a viable business, although it can't be said that it operates on a sane basis. Do not be blackmailed by the applicant into destroying this 175-year-old tree to facilitate their latest get-rich-quick scheme. If this application is approved and is upheld by judicial review, every failing developer and inept housing association in the area will be submitting applications to rip out hedgerows, tear down TPO protected trees, and other ancient woodlands based on this decision. There's no financial viability argument to be used as a wholly exceptional reason to justify the managed deterioration or loss of this irreplaceable habitat as required by paragraph 180C. Thank you.
Thank you, Rory. Laura Thomas, please.
Good evening. I have lived in Goringsmead for the past 27 years. I attended the last planning meeting featuring this application, and I was struck by the number of times speakers applauded the club's community spirit. To me and other neighbours, this bears little relation to our daily experience. Community I see as interaction and cooperation, and this engenders mutual respect, whatever people's different viewpoints. Over these 27 years, if we as neighbours have received 10 messages from the club management, I would be surprised. And individual initiatives, however welcome, I would count on one hand. By practicing on the small messages, sharing the big issues could come more easily. Take this application. From the public meeting at the end of October 22 until today, there have been no updates or correspondence with residents as a whole, despite the proposal's importance to the club and the potential effects it will have on our short and long-term well-being. We, the road that is, were not consulted on the travel and transport plan when access and driving issues have featured large in residents' objections. Whatever happens with this application, no one can afford to be insular these days. Try involving your neighbours. Who knows, in time you may find resources you can tap into from our residents. From the young professionals to the pensioners, we offer a wide range of experience. I end with a variation of the saying, charity begins at home, and that is, community starts with your neighbours. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Stephen Ratcliffe, please.
Good evening, Chair, Councillors, ladies and gentlemen. As Vice Chairman of Horsham YMCA Football Club, I'd quickly like to remind you that this is the club's 125th anniversary season, and we've been playing football matches at Goringmead for the last 94 years. Today we are asking for your approval to change the playing surface at Goringsmead to an artificial grass pitch. Increasing usage of the pitch, which will allow for a wider range of community activities to take place, whilst also boosting club income but reducing maintenance costs. We plan to open up the facility for use by more local people of all ages, young people, veterans, people with physical and mental health disabilities. This pitch upgrade will be a much needed lifeline for the club, and it will help to secure the site and the club's financial future for another 25 to 30 years. It's a £1 million project funded primarily by grants from the Football Foundation, FA Stadium Fund, YMCA Downslink and the football club itself. This project will also help the council to meet its published commitments for the provision of community accessible sporting facilities in the Horsham area. The planning officer has outlined the sole reason for the refusal is the decline of one single tree. There are no other reasons for refusal, not from highways, noise, natural England, and there is widespread support from local people, community groups and statutory bodies. Our argument is there is a wholly exceptional reason to approve the application that justifies the loss of one tree. We are asking you as councillors to consider the planning, balance the loss of one tree versus the need for the development and the public benefits as a whole. We can help transform lives and empower people of all ages. If as councillors you approve this application, it will unlock a brand new facility with significant community benefits to support all in the middle of Horsham, and a legacy that we can all be proud of. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. David Martin, please.
Good evening, councillors. My name is David Martin. I work for YMCA Downsland Group. I am the project manager of the Horsham Y Centre. This 3G project could help many people, including some of the young vulnerable people living at the Horsham Y Centre. Playing football regularly would really help improve their physical and emotional well-being, and is likely to help them on a path towards greater independence. We have responded to the question this committee raised about the viability and future of the club with and without a 3G pitch. We believe the financial information provided clearly shows that without another source of revenue from a 3G pitch, the future of the club will continue to make losses of £34,000 plus per year. That makes it unsustainable for the YMCA Downsland Group. The additional revenues from hiring a 3G pitch and the increased room hire and bar takings from greater footfall would make a big difference to the future viability of the football club. The committee also asked for information about a different retaining wall design for the southwest perimeter of the pitch, and we have provided a king post design which we would happily adopt. In summary, the 3G pitch will support vulnerable young people through YMCA Downsland Group, retain an important community facility used by many local clubs and societies. We continue to believe that community benefits and sustaining a 125-year-old football club amount to wholly exceptional reasons for approving this 3G pitch. I very much hope you grant this planning application this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Replies, please? No replies. Local members, Councillor Fletcher, Milne and Trott. Would anyone like to? Councillor Trott.
Thriving facilities are vital for the healthy maintenance of any community. And it is noted the joy that was brought to the town by the somewhat fortuitously extended FA Cup run recently. And these kind of aspects of community can't be overlooked and undervalued. However, it is noted that there is a significant threat to a veteran tree, and we should not endanger mature, established natural resources, and the recommendations of the arboriculture officer are noted. It says that unless there are compelling reasons, and I think in this case, the compelling reasons are somewhat borderline. This can go one way or the other. I would be very interested to hear what my colleagues' views are on this, as, if I'm brutally honest, I'm in two minds. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Trott. Councillor Milne.
Thank you, Chairman. We quite often get really difficult decisions in planning, and this is definitely one of them. I swear they're getting more difficult with each year that goes by. I don't know why that is. So there are competing interests here, and we can't satisfy both of them. That's just the fact. So on the one hand, we've got the club. Obviously, it's fantastic community service, and 125 years is an amazing. That's practically the dawn of football, isn't it? That's a very long time ago. So, and I definitely, the idea that I would be responsible for ending that club would be difficult to live with. So, but on the other hand, we local residents, that's some of whom I know, are very opposed to it, and especially on traffic grounds. However, traffic grounds aren't actually what we're considering today, because West Sussex highways have approved it, as they often do. So the grounds for refusal are the veteran tree, and I'd like to thank planners officers for sticking to their guns and treating that seriously as a reason for objection, because these things can easily be undervalued. It's bizarre. We have a veteran tree and we have a veteran club, but only one of them is covered in legislation. So to me, that's a flaw of the legislation that it doesn't cover everything that you would like it to. We do have the ability to go against officer advice on this and accept this, because whilst we're forced into many planning decisions, including one earlier, there is discretion for us on this. It's within our ability to take a different view. So I totally understand your being in two minds, and so am I. I feel I have to come down on the side of allowing the application, but I'll listen to the debate. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Milne. Councillor Fletcher.
It's remarkable which things turn out to be the most difficult decisions at this planning committee. And I think this is genuinely the most difficult decision from my perspective that I've been faced with so far in this, since I've been elected. I have been consistently concerned at the frequency at which trees get cut down or over enthusiastically pruned for development reasons, and often for where they really needn't do. I think it's incredibly important that we do protect our nature and biodiversity here. I am very pleased that our officers have taken this extremely seriously, and that they've gone the extra mile to look into working with the applicant on alternative dig methods to minimise or prevent damage to the tree roots. It's really unfortunate that there's such a high degree of uncertainty here as well. We don't really know where the tree roots are, and we don't know whether this tree will die of ash dieback in the very near future. The expectation is that the vast majority of ash trees, probably well over 90%, will die of ash dieback over the next few years. Equally, there is an uncertainty over the position of the club. We're really lucky to have this facility here. It's not just that it's on the very sensitive southern fringes of our town, immediately adjoining the open green space, and thereby having an effect itself on the habitat and biodiversity. It is also that this club is really important for our young people, and it's also important for the disadvantaged members of our community. So as I said at the beginning, it's an extraordinarily difficult decision. The NPPF sets a bar of wholly exceptional, and as I think has been mentioned before, it is perhaps a marginal case as to whether or not that's a reasonable thing to state in this situation. If we look at what happens if the tree, if the pitch does not go ahead, there's a very good chance that the community will lose that £1 million worth of investment for our growing town in an area, in a situation where cost of living crisis and various other economic woes are increasing, and
the finances are as they are today in those statements, but it's very easy to see that we could potentially lose this as a piece of green recreational space in the not very distant future, and no further £1 million be forthcoming to secure the future of the club. So I started off being extremely concerned about the future of the tree not being given sufficient weight in this decision. I've been frustrated by the lack of engagement on the parking and traffic problems, but it's unfortunate, but that's really not where the issue's turning on. And I am very, very conscious of the wider social situation in terms of providing an ongoing resident recreational facility for our community.
Thank you, Councillor Fletcher. Just before we proceed, the issue here obviously is to do with wholly exceptional circumstances, and I think really the conversation, if we're going to resolve this, the conversation should be around whether or not we can meet that. And this, you know, the thing being funded externally, a pitch that we have as a council on a list of things that we need, being funded externally without council funding, that supports a club that's an old club that focuses very much on people who are in need of a hand. You know, let's have a think about exceptional circumstances, because that's the case to build, otherwise it's difficult. Councillor Olsen.
Thank you. I'm not going to repeat comments on either the tree or the club's financial situation that's been included in the update. However, I too, at this point, am minded to go against the recommendation and to see this approved to go through. However, in reviewing the documents over the past week, I noted a bit of a discrepancy and relating to one of the speaker's comments today, as well as one of the main concerns of the residents, which continues to be the traffic and transport plan. I noted in the report from the last session that an earlier version of the traffic and transport plan submitted by the applicant was referenced version 2, but there's actually been a version 3 submitted. And in that, I do want to highlight specifically that the applicant has written that they plan to install 14 new secure bike spaces. Now, to my knowledge, because the report has been written on the expectation to, refuse approval, that currently there are no conditions for approval that would require a certain amount of bicycle and cycle spaces. So with that in note, also looking at the supporting documents and the plan, I could only see it noted in the plan of the site at the moment that there were 5 Sheffield cycle secure spots indicated in the diagram. So were an alternative motion proposed at some point this evening, I wanted to see that a condition was added to require a certain number of cycle parking spaces, and I was advised by another officer that this needs to be a reasonable number, and to me the reasonable number would be that being promised by the applicant to be included, if that's possible. Thank you.
If members were minded to overturn the officer's recommendation and approve the application today, we would request that it delegated for approval in consultation with the local members to finalise the conditions. There is a cycle parking condition, condition 12, in the appendix, but we would like to finalise the reports and ensure that they continue to be fit for purpose if we were minded to grant permission. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, I'd like to say I don't think we should include in the debate what ifs regarding the financial future of the club, or if the tree will get, will die of something else. If the ground doesn't have the works done. I think we have to deal with the actual facts here, that the tree is protected. It is described in the MPPF as being of exceptional biodiversity, cultural or heritage value. And that value is worth a lot, particularly at the moment. Nature is in decline across the country. It's not actually recovering yet, but we are working very hard in Horsham district, and we are starting to pull it all together with our communities. And actually every single tree is vitally important. We have communities working on wildway pollinators, pollinator wildways. We have Wilder Horsham district, and we are trying to connect all of the different sites and habitats around our district. The MPPF also states that it's as well as being exceptional, it's irreplaceable, and I think people need to think about that as well, because just planting some new saplings is not equal to the ancient tree or the veteran tree that's already there. I just want members to think about how serious and how important every single tree is going forward. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Blackburn. Councillor Skip, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Like everybody here, I think I'm probably conflicted about which avenue we should go down. I don't want to really talk about the future of a tree or the future of a football pitch or the club. But I would like to just make several points. One, I wonder how many of us see our grandchildren or children sitting at home in front of a computer screen, not exercising, not getting out, and perhaps not having anywhere that they can relate to, particularly in areas where we don't have many green spaces, and there are some in Horsham like that. And I think that the club offers the potential for many young people, youngsters, to get out and both enjoy community experience, but also get fit. And that's something that I'm very passionate about in our society. That one of the things we should be doing is improving our fitness and our health. And I'm not talking just physical health, I'm talking about mental health. We all know the problems that we are having in society with increasing mental health problems. And I think something like this will actually encourage, and if it encourages one person to get out and do something positive, then I have to say that I would put that as top of my list. And I think that from the perspective of Horsham, we know that we are short of 3G pitches, that's a fact. And I go and, excuse me, me being personal, but I go and play rugby at my age, walking rugby, at the rugby club where there is a 4G pitch. And believe me, that 4G pitch is occupied by youngsters playing football and youngsters playing rugby and others playing other sports. And if they can do it there, and we had another few pitches like that, I dare say we would be improving the health of our youngsters and giving the opportunity. So I have to support this proposal, because I think that whatever happens to the tree and the club, I hope that the youngsters will get this chance to go. And the others in the community, and I'm not just talking children, I'm also talking perhaps older people like me, who can also get out there and do something, because those pitches do encourage that. So I have to put my hat in the ring and say that I will not support the motion, the officer's proposal. And I do thank you for taking it as you've taken it, and I do thank the tree officer for his comments. but my comments also are carefully considered. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Skip. Councillor Uten.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I've listened to Councillor Skip, whom I appreciate is interested in the health of the country, or our area. But can I just say that we're talking about a tree as if the tree is on its own in its entirety, and it's not the case. The tree supports a huge amount of wildlife. So I think that I will actually go with the officer's recommendation, because I do think it's really important that we pay attention to what the arborologist has said, and I'm personally very keen on protecting trees at all costs. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Uten. Councillor Minto.
Thank you, Chair. I think I echo everyone's thinking here that this is a very difficult one, and I would never like to abstain from a vote, but if this is one that you probably would, I would expect to do so, but I never like to do that because it means I've personally failed to come up with a conclusion based on all the things I've heard. So I've kind of had to rationalise this and think about it from a different perspective, because I hear the pros and the cons of everything, and completely torn. So what I did was look at it as on the case of, if we lost one of them, can it be replaced? Until Councillor Blackburn said what she said about the vintage tree not being able to be replaced, I was kind of erring on the basis that it couldn't be, it could be. But then I had to think about the club and the 125-year history, and is that replaceable, and all the benefits associated with it. So it's such a difficult one. But I do think that it would be easier to replace or part replace the impact of losing the tree. I also heard that there's no guarantee the club would not survive, but I also heard that there's no guarantee that the works would actually lead to the demise of the tree, which made it even more complicated for me. But I think I'm still sticking with my conclusion that it would be extremely challenging to replace what that community benefit has. And I do believe that there is ways of replacing the impact on environment. So I'm inclined to support this to approval.
Thanks, Councillor Minto. Councillor Beers.
Thank you, Chairman. Horsham as a town is still growing. Okay, it's not growing as fast as it might have done without water neutrality, but there are limited facilities within and around the town for outdoor activities, and the YMCA provides one of those useful facilities. And I'm minded not to support the recommendation. I think it's a facility that the town would sorely miss if it went. It would be very difficult to replace. We all know that funding for local government and regional government is very hard to come by. So to expect to be able to replace this, if the YMCA folded, to replace that from the public purse, I think it would be naive. So I think we should do our level best to try and preserve the club and give them permission to install this artificial surface and expand their activities there. So yes, I'm at a loss as to what to suggest about the tree. Hopefully we can find some way of partly offset. We talked about offsetting a lot earlier on. I would hope that we could at least in part offset the loss of this tree. And I suppose the other thing is we have to recognise that both clubs and trees have a finite life. So we're just hastening one or the other tonight, I think. Thank you.
Yes.
I just want to remind members in terms of what the MPPF says because it's not really necessarily about how old is the club, how old is the tree. We have to bear in mind what it actually says in planning policy and whether that circumstances applies here. So I think we just need to be very mindful about what our decision is. What are we considering here? So the relevant paragraph of the MPPF says development resulting in the loss or deterioration of irreplaceable habitats such as ancient woodland and ancient or veteran trees should be refused unless there are wholly exceptional reasons and a suitable compensation strategy exists. And in the footnote to that, it says, for example, infrastructure projects, including nationally significant infrastructure projects, transport works, etc. And then it says where the public benefit would clearly outweigh the loss or deterioration of habitat. So it's what is your whole, if members are minded to approve this, what is the wholly exceptional reason? And that's really what you have to get to grips with. You have to be able to articulate what that wholly exceptional reason is. Thank you.
Yes, I was concerned that I hear a lot of talk about balancing. We're not balancing. There's a legal test here, and you've just heard it.
Sorry, can I just clarify? Are we talking about reason or reasons collectively that make something wholly exceptional?
That is for members to consider. It could be there's a number of reasons combined you think are sufficient, but that's something you would have to explain if you were minded to approve. Because if you are minded to approve, you need to give a reason to approve the application.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify. So it could well be a collection of reasons.
That's correct,
Clarification on that. Thank you for that explanation. If I'm recalling the debate from the last time, then in that case, because I believe we were reminded of this the last time, we were discussing whether a enhanced football facility would constitute infrastructure. I believe you read the footnote, it says infrastructure including national infrastructure, but not excluding local infrastructure. And the other thing we were debating as to whether the football facility itself had a public good, if I'm correct, that was the other language you used, or public benefit, sorry. And if I'm correct, this is where the decision is, whether we as members think that the continued enhancement and development of this football pitch provides infrastructure and public benefit that outweigh the veteran tree. Is that correct? And one would think, and it is officer's opinion that it does not, but this is the point that we can disagree on.
Chair, I'm sorry to be picky, but it's outweigh makes it sound like a balance of probabilities test. It is not.
But just to say, Councillor Wilson, that could be part of the the benefits to outweigh if that's what members considered. I think my understanding of part of the deferral last time was because members were concerned not providing the pitch could harm the long-term viability of the club and could result in the loss of the club, which is why you have those financials before you. So it's for members to consider whether those financials raise a concern about the long-term viability of the club, which you could consider as that wholly exceptional reasons. Obviously, the officer's view is it doesn't meet that test, but that is a consideration for members. Thank you.
Councillor Frank.
Thank you. I'm going to abstain from this vote only because I arrived late and I missed the early presentations. But no one in this room, I would guess, wants to see the destruction of the tree, and no one in the room, for the same reason, wants to see the demise or potential demise of the football club. I'm very conscious in terms of Councillor Blackburn and Newtown's feelings over the tree and the fact they provide an environment for all sorts of other creatures. And there's a phrase of when's the best time to plant a tree? 100 years ago, because you had that established tree and community. But when you're talking about the idea of, I totally feel it's not a balance or a back and forth here. We're talking about something that I feel is wholly, I suppose, exceptional, we may lose the football club in time, whereas we can grow another tree, and no one wants to lose the tree. But I think the benefits to our community from an upgraded, enhanced football pitch outweigh what we will lose in terms of the tree. That's not a balance, it's just a statement. That's what we're being asked to discuss. That is it. And I feel that if I were to vote, I would be voting against the proposal.
Thanks, Councillor Frank. Councillor Brooks, sorry.
Thank you. With respect to the comments that my fellow councillor, Councillor Frank, has just made, I am concerned that this is a very, very high legal bar that is placed before us, and that while we do have discretion as members to arrive according to our own consciences as to whether or not that is met by these exceptional circumstances, I do think it is important to recognise that a weighing up of what we might like and which public benefit we believe confers the greater benefit, or which we believe to be more salient, isn't what we are being asked to consider here. We have one thing that is protected by statute and another thing that is not. And while we have some discretion to disagree, and I recognise the strong feelings of other members, I personally think that between those two things, the right thing to do in legal terms is to measure a doubt against a certainty. And I am not certain, in all honesty, that wholly exceptional is a bar that has been met in this case, and therefore I will not be able to do otherwise than vote with the officer recommendation. But I would encourage every person in this room to consider according to their own understanding of the law and their own understanding of public benefit and of what might constitute wholly exceptional. And I am very aware that there are experienced and seasoned minds in this room who will understand it. So, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Wow. Councillors do make decisions on balance, don't they? This wouldn't be here if this was an easy decision. It would have been made. I do have the back in mind. I'm going to disagree with Councillor Blackburn in terms of, I've read that ash dieback is going to kill 90 to 95% of trees in the next 20 years. So there is, as Councillor Bevis said, there is a possible mortality rate on this particular tree. The other thing that, if I come back to what Councillor Parks, Head of Development, said, the loss of the tree. We're not guaranteed to lose this tree. I've sat there, read the condition notes, I've read the specifications, I've read the advisories. This isn't a guaranteed loss of this particular tree. It's not a guaranteed degradation. So we're not condemning this tree to death. From what I can read, the applicant and the informative and the condition notes that have been put in place are trying their damned hardest to keep and preserve this tree. So there is no guarantee that the decision that we make tonight is going to kill that particular tree. I guess if the roots are damaged, there is some degradations that we are possibly erring on the side. But the loss of the tree, I think we're not, and that does play on my mind. That we're not condemning this tree to death. We're putting condition notes in to try as damn hard as we can to protect that particular tree. And on that basis, I think I am minded, if either local members is minded to move an application to grant this application, I would very much like to hear the wording of that particular statement so that I can choose whether I support that or not. But as it stands at the moment, I do feel that the community, the loss of a club, it's in financial difficulty. We've seen its projected losses for the next 5 years. The loss of the community facility, the loss of infrastructure, the loss of Green Place would have a detrimental effect on our community. So therefore, yes, I would very much like to hear one of the local members, if they do have wording in mind for a to overturn the officer's decision and grant this application. I would like to hear the wording. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just clarify, the wording of the MPPS says development resulting in the loss or deterioration of replaceable habitat, so it's not just loss. So I just want members to be mindful of that. Thank you.
Councillor Milne.
Thank you for your invitation, Councillor. I will make an alternative motion to accept, and I'd like help with the wording, but on the grounds that not to do so would threaten the viability of a much loved, valued, and indeed ancient community service, set against the possibility that the tree in question may survive without any harm, or indeed may die of ash dieback, which has nothing to do with our decision. I'm sure you can word that better.
Perhaps we might adjourn for 5 minutes and sort out the wording on this one. I don't know if I'm allowed to just add wholly exceptional, as I said, if it's a collective of things, whether or not we can include the fact that it's £1 million investment from money outside of council, and an organisation that does good things for the community that might otherwise be impacted. So, for me, those are exceptional, whether they're wholly exceptional. But when you combine what I've got down here with a few other bits and pieces, we appear to have a case for wholly exceptional, I would have thought.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. That is a valuable, literally valuable input. We do need these facilities. They're very expensive. We would struggle to afford them as a council otherwise. So yes, I would agree to having that.
Okay. So Chairman, as I said, my recommendation is we just have a short adjournment so it is an important decision, and officers want to make sure they've got the wording from Councillor Milne correct before you articulate the motion. So if we can just have a few minutes to discuss the wording with you, that would be much appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, thanks everybody. 5 minutes.
anyway, Councillor.
Okay.
Slightly new technical term, legal term.
That's fantastic.
Can we start settling down, please? Thank you, everybody. I believe we have a proposal.
So if I may read out, so the resolution would be to delegate to the Head of Development and Building Control to approve planning permission subject to the agreement of a list of conditions in consultation with local members for the following reason. The proposed development demonstrates wholly exceptional reasons to justify the potential deterioration and or loss of the veteran ash tree by reason of enabling the viability of a long-standing community facility and the provision of significant new infrastructure to the benefit of the physical and mental health of the community with appropriate compensation measures secured. Thank you.
I move that.
Seconder, please. Councillor Minto. All those in favour of the resolution, please.
That's 15 support.
All those against?
3, 4, no, 4.
That's 4 on objection.
And abstentions, please.
Yes, we did, but he's abstaining, which is his version of it.
And that's 2 abstentions.
Okay, thank you very much. That's carried. Okay, thanks very much. Moving on. Thanks for coming, guys. DC 230460, Mill Farm, Itchingfield.
Thank you, Chair. As explained, this application is DC 230460, relates to Mill Farm in Itchingfield. The application site is located beyond the built-up area boundary of Broadbridge Heath, just to the south of the built-up area boundary, which sits just about here to the north. Within a countryside location and within the wider Mill Farm complex, as annotated by the red line on the screen. The site is situated just to the north of the Downs Link footpath / former railway and is accessible by way of gravel footpath to both to Broadbridge Heath and to the Downs Link by a shared private driveway, which is gravelled, also serves as a public right of way just to the west of the site. The proposal is for the replacement of an existing agricultural barn with a single market dwelling. The dwelling would be located at the western extent of the Mill Farm complex, as is shown on the map here. It sits to the west of the existing dwelling of Mill Farm, that is a dwelling despite the name, and to the direct north of former agricultural facilities or agricultural facilities as observed during my site visit. There is a parcel of designated ancient woodland known as Baystone Copse, which is situated 15 metres to the west of the application site. So the site does incorporate the minimum recommended 15-metre buffer to designated ancient woodland. So fortunately, we won't have to consider paragraph 180C in conjunction with this application. There is no loss or deterioration. The existing barn Nothing particular special, I think it's fair to say. It's a fairly unassuming, nearly single-storey building, metal-clad, timber frame structure, as can be seen in my site visit photos here. It's of a utilitarian appearance, typical of many agricultural structures in the district. It has no particular aesthetic or architectural merit. You can see the way in which the site sits, the building sits within the wider farm, just in the bottom right-hand side. You can see the existing dwelling of Mill Farm just off to the left-hand side of that photo. And in the in the top right-hand photo, you can see the northerly view away from the application site towards Broadbridge Heath. So the land does fall away towards the River Arun, but there are generally well-established tree boundaries and existing landscape features which would most likely prevent most significant views, except perhaps a few glimpsed views from existing public footpaths and public perspectives. The existing barn benefits from prior approval for conversion to form a single dwelling. That was granted in 2021, pursuant to reference DC 21-2075. That prior approval has today received approval pursuant to Regulation 77 of the Habitat Regulations under HRA 220020. The prior approval, therefore, is capable of implementation and would expect to be implemented in the alternative to the current proposal. And the current proposal is advanced as an alternative to the prior approval consent, which can already be implemented. The proposed dwelling occupies the same footprint and orientation as the existing barn. It would be accessed via the existing. Access which serves the farmyard and will continue to serve the farmyard and proposed dwelling. You can see the parking spaces will be provided to the direct south, together with dedicated cycle parking and refuse stores, with a small garden to the north of the proposed dwelling. Proposed dwelling is an increase in height at 2 stories above the existing structure, but much of the bulk and massing of the building is contained within its roof slope, including, crucially, the second story layer. The building resembles an agricultural form that has a dual-pitched roof and a pitch which is typical of traditional agricultural development and common to many barns in the district. It features timber cladding to its external faces, together with metal roofing, again expected materials for a agricultural building. There are some more domestic elements, as evidenced on the plans. You can see that, in particular on the northern elevation, the amount of glazing at ground floor level and at first floor level. That at ground floor level I wouldn't expect to be particularly prominent within landscape views, given that it is at ground floor level. And in any case, the glazing is inset from the northernmost extent of the building through the with the main walls extending beyond those glazed surfaces, which provides some form of mitigation. In effect, officers consider the dwelling to be of an appropriate scale, size and design and character, appropriate to a rural context and its positioning within the rural confines of Mill Farm and its wider surrounds. The proposal has demonstrated water neutrality through a mitigation scheme which has been subject to appropriate assessment. Natural England have confirmed their agreement with the conclusions of the authority's appropriate assessment. And with no expected impact on the ancient woodland, you can just see the extent of that to the left-hand side on the screen now. The proposal is overall recommended for approval. It's very much a slip of the tongue, that one, I'm afraid, for the reasons set out in the report. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We have no public speakers on this. We have a couple of local ward members. Councillor Greenwood, Councillor Utan, would either of you like to say anything?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. The parish council have absolutely no objection to it. Nobody else has any objection to it. It is entirely in keeping with the rural nature of the area. It doesn't affect anybody at all. It's not visible in any shape or form. So consequently, I'm very happy to go with the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Utan. Councillor Greenwood?
Thank you. I'll just echo Councillor Utan's comments. No objection, and the parish council's happy, so.
Thank you. Right, would one of you, would anybody like to say anything on this? Councillor Skip.
Yes, apologies for this, it's only a question really. I noticed the Fire and Rescue Service advised the proposed dwelling is 295 metres beyond the minimum distance to a fire hydrant required to serve domestic premises. I just wonder what happens if there's a fire, if the fire hydrant's that distance away.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. I was schooled on this in a public inquiry relatively recently, where we had suggested a condition was incorporated in response to a very similar remark or comment expressed by the Fire and Rescue Service. The position of the inspector was very much, and they were definitive on the matter, was that it is a building controls matter. They will, as part of the development to be undertaken, need to provide an adequate means of firefighting storage on the site, whether that be a store for firefighting water, or indeed to provide a fire hydrant. I wouldn't necessarily expect that in this type of rural location, but the building regs regime in effect provides that type of security.
Well, as long as there's some way of putting water on a fire, I'm quite happy. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Skip. Anybody else? Would somebody like to please move the motion? Councillor Greenwood to move. Councillor Utan, would you like to second, or the other way around? Toss a coin.
Okay, I recommend this for approval as per the officer's recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Greenwood to second, please. All those in favour?
That is unanimous.
Thank you very much. That is approved. Thanks, everybody. I think we're done. Meeting closed at 7:17 p.m.